Today, Brooke and I are going to tell you about our project, Keeping Cats Safe at Home, where we've applied a one welfare approach to domestic cat management in New South Wales. Cats cause two separate but related challenges for us in Australia. The first relates to their very refined skills as predators. Unfortunately, we have many small native animals like this endangered bandicoot who are very susceptible to cat predation. For cats, hunting is instinctive, and cats will hunt regardless of whether they're a wild cat living out in the bush or if their name is Princess and they also spend a lot of their time on someone's pillow. And actually, the impact of owned cats on wildlife populations is growing as residential areas encroach more and more on shrinking fragments of natural habitat, like you can see here with the tiny North Head National Park, home of a critically endangered population of bandicoots, sitting hard up against the suburbs of Manly in the centre of Sydney. The second challenge is due to overpopulation of unowned or stray cats in many parts of Australia. Now, these cats present to our RSPCA pounds and shelters in their thousands every year. Many present as unsocialised adults, like this guy in the trap, who are severely stressed in a shelter environment and who are incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to rehome. So most of these cats are euthanized. But more so, stray cats arrive at shelters in their thousands as orphaned kittens. So this is a poster I saw at a supermarket in a rural town just last week. And it's a great example of how this happens. So it says, "We recently rescued a sweet mama cat and her 3 playful kittens off the streets. But due to accommodation restrictions and an upcoming move, we can't keep them. Shelters are full, rescue groups are overwhelmed. There are just not enough homes for all these kittens that just keep on coming." Which brings us to our project. It was funded by a grant from the New South Wales government through its Environmental Trust. And the aim was to reduce wildlife impacts associated with owned cats by, 1, encouraging cat caregivers to prevent their cats from roaming, and 2, increasing the uptake of so-called responsible ownership behaviours, such as desexing. Between 2021 and 2024, the project partnered with 11 local councils in New South Wales, which we selected intentionally to be quite diverse in terms of their cat management challenges, also their human demographics, and also their physical environment as well. So we could try a range of different things. We designed a holistic human behaviour change approach to cat management based on our social science research, which you can read online. And what we found was that people's psychological capability was their main barrier to keeping their cats at home. So people believing that containing their cats would be too difficult, not being confident they could meet all their cats' needs, those sorts of things. Interestingly, we found that physical capability was less of a factor. And we actually found that renters and people living in apartments were more likely to contain their cats. So we developed a suite of resources to provide cat caregivers with accessible information, to help them learn how to keep their cats contained, but also to learn about what cats need, how to understand the ways they communicate, all the things that can help them give their cats not just a contained life, but also a really good life. We hosted these resources on our project website where they can be downloaded for free. We also developed a 12-month triggered email journey to provide subscribers with regular updates and continue to link them back to our library of resources. So the website was visited over 87,000 times across the project, and we had more than 4,000 people subscribe to the newsletter. We knew that using the right channels to reach cat caregivers was critical, and that cat caregivers, they trust and they listen to their vets. So we engaged with local veterinary practices, provided them with packs of resources to help them have conversations with cat caregivers. So again, not just about containment, but about how to meet all their cats' needs. We also focused on equipping the next generation with the knowledge to make informed decisions about cat caregiving in the future. So we engaged with school kids, reaching more than 1,400 face-to-face, using all these resources that we've designed that are linked back to the New South Wales curriculum. We got out in the community face-to-face as well. So we did more than 30 community events, engaging not just with cat caregivers directly through things like the Cat Lovers Festival, but also getting in touch with the vet profession and with council rangers, because we know they're really important stakeholders too in cat management. So probably the cornerstone of our human behaviour change campaign was our social marketing, primarily on our RSPCA New South Wales owned channels. So we reached over 3.5 million people through our social media alone. We use posts like these, so educational posts talking about what cats need, how to meet all their needs at home, how to do containment well, content that was informative, but also content that was engaging. So we finally got really good reach and lots of shares with videos like these on enrichment and DIY activities that people could do at home. We got a lot of engagement with stories like these as well. So powerful stories, what I like to call the cautionary tales of cats who've had some sort of misadventure or an injury while roaming and have subsequently transitioned to a safe at home lifestyle. So real, true stories of real life cats. Another thing we used our social marketing campaign for was to incentivize the containment behaviour. So we use those incentives to increase people's motivation to contain, also to increase their physical and their psychological capability. We gave away things like cat enclosures, enrichment packs for their cats. And another benefit of this approach was we actually generated this huge amount of user-generated content by asking people to send in photos of themselves with their cats or photos of their cats safe at home, which helped us create like a community of practice, a group of responsible cat caregivers who are preventing their cats from roaming. So again, helping to normalise that containment behaviour. We also developed a paid advertising campaign. So this one's a little bit different. It went out on Facebook and YouTube and catch-up television, and I'll play that for you now. So we use quite a different message frame for this one, where the rest of our social marketing campaign is very positively framed. This one's a bit more negative, but it was still really well received and performed really well. Now, I'm going to loop back to that second cat management challenge of the unowned cats. So we knew from our stakeholder consultation that these populations were actually really important when we're thinking about cat owner behaviour, because a very large proportion of owned cats actually start their lives in this population, like people who hadn't planned to become a cat owner, they just found a stray. So we implemented these stray care targeted desexing programs, focusing on areas with large populations of unowned cats, so mainly the lower socioeconomic areas and the areas where people experience more barriers to accessing veterinary services. The aim of these programs was to reduce the numbers of unowned cats. And we did that by partnering with local stakeholders, so councils, vets, cat rescue groups, to offer free cat desexing. And we targeted specifically caregivers of unowned cats and cat owners who are overwhelmed with multiple cats. Again, we used a human behaviour change approach. So using social marketing, encouraging the whole community to notice the stray cats for one thing, and then to act to make sure that they have a permanent home. So trying to challenge the normalisation of people just feeding stray cats without actually taking responsibility for them. And before I hand over to Brooke, she'll talk about our monitoring and how we evaluated the project. I'll leave you with this animation we created to help support the human behaviour change around unowned cats.
Tanya walks the same path to work every day, stopping to feed Tom on her way. Tanya doesn't know it, but Tom relies on her to get him through another rough night on the street. Growing up has been tough for Tom. He's felt the fear of fighting other cats and learnt the worst way to get hurt is by a speeding car. He knows the terror of being chased by dogs and still suffers the pain of old wounds. With no owner to take him to a vet, Tom endures illnesses that leave him weak and scared. But the truth is that Tom is one of the lucky ones because he's still around. Most cats that live outdoors don't last that long, with an average life expectancy of just a few years. No wonder that little bit of time with Tanya each day helped Tom to carry on. And now she knows it. And she knows the right thing to do. A visit to the vet to check if he has an owner. But when it is clear that no one is looking for Tom, he is desexed and microchipped and taken to her comfy home to settle down. Finally, Tom, for the first time in his life, can truly feel safe. Care for the cat in your life. RSPCA, New South Wales.
Thank you, Gemma. So I'm going to give you an overview of how we monitored the impacts of the Keeping Cats Safe at Home project. This graph is showing the total pound cat intake combined for all the councils within the stray care desexing program that Gemma just discussed. You can see a dramatic change from an upwards to a downwards trend after the project commenced in 2021. The number of cats euthanized through council pounds also decreased dramatically, with Kyogle and Walgett reducing by 100%. There was also a decline in cat-related nuisance complaints, with 7 project councils with at least a 40% drop and 4 councils with an over 60% drop. However, as you can see, the Blue Mountains had an increase. We are unsure, but this may be because of the increased awareness of issues associated with roaming cats. This area also has a relatively small unowned cat population, but a relatively larger owned cat population that free roams. It has a community who is very engaged with environmental conservation. So there is a limitation of not distinguishing between unowned and stray cats from our owned cats when collecting data on nuisance complaints. We also monitored the ecology of free roaming cats before and after the project. We used both transect drives to estimate cat populations, and we also used camera traps to measure when and where cats were roaming. We chose 2 coastal regional councils on the north coast of New South Wales, Tweed and Byron. The transect drives were conducted in residential areas only. Those transects are shown here in red. Cameras were placed on private property in residential and rural areas across the LGAs and are shown here by the camera images. We also chose 2 councils in Sydney to conduct both the transects and cameras as well. Free roaming cat population estimates based on those transect drives showed a decrease in all 3 of the measured councils. Unfortunately, major weather events and logistics prevented Byron Council's final transect. Although there were less cats roaming, there were no significant difference in the predicted occupancy of cats. This means that although there were less cats, the cats that were still roaming were taking up the same amount of space as before. And they also continued to roam at all hours of the day. These graphs are basically 24-hour clocks and are showing that cats were not roaming at any time of day more than any other time. So they were roaming equally at all parts of the day. meaning that they still had the same potential to impact wildlife, including the potential of predation. These graphs show the density of cats and small mammals plotted against what time of day they were captured on our cameras. The grey areas are showing the amount of time that both groups were active at the same time. In this case, we considered small mammals as all mammals that are smaller than bandicoots. We did capture cats actually predating on birds on 2 occasions, one of them being shown here on the left. We also captured multiple events of cats with birds, mammals, and reptiles in their mouths, which of course they could have just picked up or they could have predated on them themselves. So there is still a lot of work to do. We still have a lot of cats free roaming that are having an impact on our wildlife. We'd like to thank our 11 partner councils and the vet clinics within those councils that partnered with us to deliver free desexing programs throughout our project. Thank you very much for listening.